Most people didn't miss the gains in Tesla because they were wrong. They missed them because they couldn't hold it. Tesla isn't just an investment, it's a psychological stress test. And most people fail it long before the stock ever does anything. It sounds harsh, but it explains a lot. In the last video, we talked about what happens after Tesla changes your life, how solving the money problem doesn't actually solve everything, how wealth gets weird and identity shifts in ways people don't expect. Once the number gets big enough, that work becomes optional. This video is about the part before that, because long before Tesla ever changes your net worth, it does something else first. It quietly selects for a certain type of person, and most people never make it through that filter. Here's something that becomes obvious once you've watched Tesla long enough. A lot of very smart people were right about Tesla. They understood the mission, they saw where transportation, energy, and software were going. They believed that EVs would win. They believed that autonomy mattered. They believed legacy auto was structurally disadvantaged, and they still sold. Not because the thesis broke, not because Tesla stopped executing, but because holding Tesla is psychologically brutal in ways most people don't understand when they first buy. Being right intellectually is one thing, living with being early is another. If you've held Tesla for more than a couple of years, you know this rhythm. You buy, you do the work, you build conviction, then the stock runs and gives it all back. Then it runs again and crashes even harder. Then you're up an amount of money that feels absurd. And 6 months later, you're questioning whether you imagined it. All while everyone around you is telling you that you're wrong. The media runs hit pieces, analysts revise targets downward, friends ask if you've taken some off the table, family members worry out loud. At some point, you stop explaining yourself. You either quietly hold or you don't. And that's where the filtering happens. Here's the ironic part. Tesla didn't wipe out people who did not understand it. It wiped out people who did understand it, but couldn't tolerate the uncertainty that came with being early. Smart people are used to feedback loops. They're used to being validated, good grades, promotions, peer approval. Investing in Tesla offers none of that. Instead, it gives you long stretches where your thesis is correct, but your timing looks terrible, where you're early enough to be right and still look foolish, where your confidence is constantly tested by volatility you can't control. Most people aren't built for that. They sell after the money doubles or triples or 5Xs, not because they stopped believing, but because they were tired. Volatility isn't about numbers on a screen. It's about what those numbers mean to you. Every drawdown forces a question. Am I actually right or am I just stubborn? Every rally invites another. Is this a top? Is the public finally going to get it? Tesla asks you to answer those questions over and over again with no clear signal and no reassurance. For most people, that cognitive load becomes unbearable. So they relieve it the only way that they know how. They sell the stock. There's also a social cost that almost never gets discussed. Holding Tesla turns you into that Tesla person, the one who always has to defend themselves, who gets jokes when the stock is down, the one who people quietly root against because your conviction makes them uncomfortable. Some people can carry that weight quietly, but most people cannot. And over time, that pressure gets into decision making. You tell yourself you're being prudent or diversified or disciplined, but often you're just trying to make the discomfort stop. Tesla has a way of exposing that. Over time, Tesla stops behaving like a stock and starts acting like a filter, not for intelligence, not for access to information, but for temperament. It selects for people who can sit with ambiguity without panicking, people who hold conviction without constant reassurance, who separate their identity from daily price action in a stock, who are willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time, and for people who resist the urge to constantly do something. Those aren't analytical skills. They're psychological ones, and they're rare. When people look at Teslanaires after the fact, they focus on the outcome, the net worth, the timing, the luck. What they don't see is the selection process that happened beforehand. Tesla didn't just reward people who were right, it rewarded people who could stay right while everything around them told them they were wrong. Most people opted out long before the payoff, not because Tesla failed them, but because they failed Tesla's psychological test. This pattern shows up with every true compounder. Amazon in the early 2000s, Apple before the iPhone proved itself, companies like Lemonade today. The investments that create life changing outcomes are rarely the ones that feel comfortable while they're compounding. They feel boring, they feel volatile, they feel lonely. That's not a flaw, that's the price of admission. This is the part of the journey we spend the most time on at Rebellion Air. Not picking stocks, not chasing trades, but helping people navigate what comes with conviction before the win, during the volatility, and after the money problem is solved. Because the psychological side is where most people make their biggest mistakes. And it's a side almost no one prepares you for. Here's a thread that connects this to the last video we did. The same traits required to hold Tesla before it works are the same traits required after it works: patience, emotional regulation, independence of thought. If Tesla ever changed your life, it probably wasn't the money that tested you the most. It was surviving the years when nobody believed you. Tesla isn't for most people, not because they're dumb, not because they didn't do the work, but because most people aren't built to live inside uncertainty long enough to let compounding do what it does best. The market doesn't just reward intelligence, it rewards endurance. And that's the part almost nobody talks about.